After going through school for several years, the real world afterwards can feel much different. There were a lot of things that I didn't actively think about until I actually graduated college, and I'll talk about some of those that I experienced or saw in others. To start off, one of the big differences between school and life afterwards is structure. From the time we enter school, we get into a very structured schedule of take these sets of classes, pass them, and you get to move on, then repeat. In high school, I was finally able to pick some electives, so when picking a schedule, I could choose between Spanish or French and physics or chemistry, and so on, but that's about it. If you go to college, you pick between a long list of possible majors, take your classes, then you get to graduation day, and the possible choices afterwards become insanely large in what you can do with your life. The city you live in, the company you work for, what job you take, whether you start a business or not, how much of your money you invest, should you work an extra hour from home to get things done or not, should you get out of a relationship or stick with it, and so on. All these aren't so structured, and you do this, then you get to the next step. For those who are going to get a job after college, it's also not so structured how you will move up in your career, which I didn't really think about. It's not like after 1 year you're guaranteed to move to this next position if you do everything well, like in school where if you pass, you just move on the next year or semester. You could get promoted in 2 months because you're learning way faster and doing way more for the company than they thought, or it might take years to get a real promotion. There could be someone else working extra hours way more who gets promoted much faster than you, even though you've been there the same amount of time. It also comes down to there not being as much of a timeline. Like in school, it's make it to June 5th or whatever your last day is, get these grades and you move on or get promoted to the next level. In school, everyone makes it to graduation if they do things right. But not everyone can go to the CEO position if they follow the right steps. Not everyone can be an executive, not everyone will create $1 million company by just trying really hard. These are totally possible though, don't get me wrong, but it's not like work for 5 years and then everyone gets a promotion to the next level and everyone gets a chance at CEO and executive level positions after some amount of time. It really depends on you. And all of this is one reason I noticed a shift in how I saw others in school versus the real world and the comparisons I made. A common question I get is, were you ever intimidated or did you feel inferior to people in your classes who are way ahead of where you are? And honestly, in school I did not feel that much, but in the real world I absolutely noticed these feelings, and I think it's because of what I discussed earlier. In school, the highest reward I could get was passing the class with an A, and classes were designed such that anyone could do that, and also a certain amount of people almost always would. And I think that actually held me back from seeking out additional knowledge and skills outside of school subjects at times, because the grading system was all I really knew, and I had to be most concerned with that. And even if someone was really far ahead, it didn't stop me from having the ability to get an A. I mean, yes, some people could ruin the curve, I guess, but if I was able to achieve a high score, I could pass with a good grade. And even at the end of the day, a bad grade wasn't the end of the world. But if someone was way far ahead, I also just thought that's fine, the highest they can get is an A, and it's something I can do too. But in the real world, I look around and the people who have gotten ahead and have all this experience are the ones gaining fast promotions, getting hired at very top tier companies, starting very exciting businesses, and doing many things we'd all consider desirable. Whereas in school, all I notice is them just getting good grades, if anything. The tangible rewards are more observable outside of school, and when you aren't achieving what someone the same age as you is especially, you might question, am I doing something wrong, am I not good enough, and so on. Now I personally try never to let this affect me because there's nothing we can do about our past. I always try to learn and move forward. All the people who you might look up to at one point in time had way less knowledge and skills than you. They acquired it over time, and it can happen for you too. But I think many people can relate to feeling a sense of intimidation by those way ahead of you, and it's something I noticed much more after school. Then for people who will be working 40 hours per week at a job after school, you probably know who you are, but you might not fully grasp that feeling of working 40 hours if you've never done it before. It does make up a big part of your life though, getting up early and leaving in the evening, so your job can make or break your happiness. Many people won't love their first job, and that's totally fine. If you do, then that's awesome. However, if you really don't enjoy it or just hate the people you work with, it will be draining on you. But one of the things I did enjoy about post-school life was no homework or exams. At least at my job, once I was off work, I was done. The rest of the day was totally free, and I didn't really need to think about work or anything like that. However, some days I had to stay really late, and at many jobs you have to take work home sometimes, maybe to meet an important deadline, but I had much less of it. Also, personally, I found work life less stressful than school. Now, work was definitely tough at times, but overall, if you took the average stress of my work life and school life, I'd say school was much higher. This is only referring to how I felt about work, but I know this will definitely differ for a lot of people. Also, making money after school was very nice. I was mostly broke all throughout high school and college. However, paying bills, while affordable if you make enough, was definitely more than I thought. For many people, you may not think about what your parents are really paying for your cost of living. And I did an entire video on this before. So in school, you may be living purely off your parents' money, and if you run out, they might send you more. In the real world, it's all on you. Then moving on, after school, you have much more control over your life, and this is good for some and not for others. Like, think about the person who cannot get themselves to work on anything without their parents making them. This means some people are going to have more fun and happiness after college than ever before in their life, and some people won't. In high school, if you hated your school or your home life, it's probably not your fault, it's what you were given. But in the real world, if you hate your job, relationship, living situation, and more, and stay unhappy, that's more on you to fix. It might not be all your fault because there are of course things out there out of our control, but it's usually much more so on you. Some people will use that control to get ahead on their finances, and others will gamble their money away, causing even more stress. Some people will eat healthier than ever, while others will eat pizza every day. And yes, I do know some people who do that. And sometimes people realize, okay, I am unhappy and need to do something, but there are so many options out there and you might not know what to do, so in turn you do nothing at all. Some of the changes or decisions, given that control you have, might be hard to do, whether it's working more, getting out of your comfort zone, or taking a risk like starting a business venture. But your happiness will be much more up to you. It's just not always very easy to achieve some of the things you want, and your persistence, work ethic, and more will determine how far you get. Overall, what I've seen and heard from people is that your 20s, 30s, and so on can be the best times of your life if you make it so, but it's more on you to make that happen. So hopefully this gave you some insight on school versus the real world, or at least made you actively think about some of these differences. And if you liked the video, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.